going? If you're around this channel regularly, you know that this isn't the typical type of video that comes up on this channel. As you know, we always end up buying stuff and bringing in old tractors to work on, fix them up, get them running again, or other kinds of stuff that does not run that we bring in to fix up, get running again, and do whatever the hell I decide to do with it. This is going to be a different type of video. This is going to be, I've been making videos in the background of working on stuff, but none of them currently are ready to upload yet. So this is going to be a story time Sunday. Now, I know that the video production has been slow. I do apologize about that. There is a reason for that, and we will get into that here later. So today I want to talk about a video topic that I always get asked about. Everybody asks me this question, and I've talked about it, but I've never sat down and made a video dedicated to it. And I thought, you know, this is a part of the channel. The channel's involved with this, so let's make a video about it. This is going to be the story of, if you've been around for a while, I'm sure that you have witnessed probably most of these, because I think almost all of them are on the YouTube channel, is going to be why I absolutely hate and why I despise of Tecumseh engines. I will never work on, well, here I go saying it again, and once I say I will never do this again, another one shows up. So I will never work on another Tecumseh engine again. And now I'm going to have another one show up, aren't I? So let me give you guys, I'm going to try my best to give a backstory on all these tractors and how their lives were before I got them, as far back as I know. And that might give a little bit better explanation as to, you know, what these tractors did. So to start with, we start with the first, not the first tractor I ever bought, but the first tractor I ever bought to get running. This is a 1968 John Deere 112. I actually still have this tractor, although it does not have the Tecumseh in it anymore. This tractor sat for 20 years in a lean-to of a barn with another 112, and there was a 210 that was with it also, but the 210 sat outside underneath of a tarp. This tractor I bought, it was a manual lift 112. There was another 112 there also. It was a hydraulic lift 112, and that one had an issue with it too that we will get into. This tractor that I bought, though, had the Tecumseh HH100. Now, if you've been around the Tecumseh world, the garden tractor world, you will know Sears, John Deere, and I think Wheelhorse. There was a few other ones. All of them used this Tecumseh HH100. So they made so many of these engines, you would think that they all were perfect, right? I wish. So we get into the story of this tractor. I bought this tractor for 150 bucks. I actually paid, it was this one and another one I bought for 150 bucks. I had them both brought to the shop, and we pulled apart the 68 112 to get it running again. We got the engine running. It didn't take a whole lot of effort, and we got it running. This was actually the first engine, again, that I had ever gotten running, which I thought was really cool. And we got the engine running. I went out and used it, took it outside, mowed with it. There's a small little portion out here in front of the shop. I took it over there and mowed with it, and it did pretty good. So brought it back over here to the shop. The one other issue that reminds me about this engine is it had no governor. You throttle that engine up and it's going wham all the way up to the moon, and you better hope that you're able to not blow that thing up. So that's another problem that may have led to the next upcoming issue. So I used that tractor, and it did pretty good for a while. It was decent for a while. But that while was very short-lived. You see, to me it almost seems like Tecumseh engines, they run, if you can keep them running, if you get them to running, you can keep them running. They're great motors. They do a really good job. And this one was no exception. This one did really good. For a while, you know, like I said, it was a good engine, but that while was very, very short-lived. This one, going out there and using it, as you use it more, I started to notice a knock. And once I noticed that knock, I thought, well, I guess let's just go on ahead and run it and see what happens. Now, I did check the oil on it and the oil was good. I had changed it actually after I heard that knock, again, to see if the knock would go away, which the knock never went away, it just got worse. So I said, well, I'm just going to run it, let's see what happens. Engine shuts off like I turned off the key. I went to crank it to start the engine back up, and that engine sat there and spun, and I could not get it to start. It had compression, and so I knew that the rod hadn't blown. So I could never get that engine to start. I put a new carb on it, new spark plug. I checked the plug had spark, and I checked the coil was good. So I ended up pulling the cylinder head off of it, and the intake valve was not opening up. So the exhaust valve was opening up though, but no intake valve. So I decided, well, okay. I pulled the motor out and I left the tractor to just sit there to figure out what was going to happen with it, and I took that engine out to take it apart and figure out what happened. Well, here to find out, the camshaft had actually split in half. I do have the camshaft with me. So this is the camshaft that came out of that engine. As you can see, this is the one out of that HH100. Right here's where it broke. And as you can see, so yeah, clean brake, and it's an old brake. So yeah, that's the camshaft out of that engine. This thing, yeah, it had a rough life. And also another thing about the tractor that I noticed was the fender pan. I went to pull the fender pan off of it, and underneath the fender pan was filled with sand. So that's another thing to keep in mind about this one. I'm pretty sure that it lived on a beach somewhere in its past life, and it maintained the beach surface because it had sand and seashells in it. So that was something I noticed about it. I do have some of the seashells still actually in the house. So then we jump on to the next Tecumseh that I bought. This one actually came to me in a 1968 John Deere 112. I was looking around for a round fender and I found this one. Now, actually I had this one brought to the house. A guy reached out to me and said that he had a John Deere round fender. He didn't tell me what it was, so I thought, okay, round fender, we'll just see what it is when he brings it over. He offered to bring it over, and he brought it over, and I looked at it, and I'm thinking, that's a square fender, that's not a round fender. I'm sure if you've been around this channel long enough, you'll probably remember this tractor as soon as I start talking about it. It was a John Deere 112, it was a square fender, and it had a yellow hood with a Tecumseh engine, and it was also a hydraulic lift tractor. That's the one. This one, he said that it sat for 20-something years before he bought it. He got it running, but not very good. That one ended up needing some help, and once it got the help it needed, it ended up running, and it ran pretty decent. So this tractor ended up becoming a parts tractor, which was kind of unfortunate because I had all the books and literature for it, but there was some other stuff that I wanted off of it. I didn't really need the tractor around here, and I kind of decided, well, I want the motor, I want to get this other 112 running, so I'm going to go on ahead and just take the engine out of this one and everything and get mine going. So in the process of doing that, somebody else ended up buying the rest of the tractor off of me. I listed it for sale and it got sold, so that was pretty good. That engine ended up going into my 68 112, the one out of that 112 with the yellow hood. Now, this one must have felt outdone by the last one making such a good show by blowing that camshaft it decided, I'm gonna have some more fun with this and I'm gonna make a better show out of it. So this engine decided it was gonna puke oil out every possible place it could. Crank seals, valve cover, the head, the muffler, yes, the muffler. Some way, somehow it blew it out the muffler. The dipstick tube, it blew oil out the dipstick tube. So I took this one apart and put new rings in it, put a new rod in it, put all new gaskets in it, all new seals in it, rebuilt the crankcase breather, cleaned it out, made sure that everything in there was good and that the breather was assembled right, where the little drain hole that drains oil back into the engine was facing down so the oil drained out, which I had it all set up right, and I went to put it back together. The engine started, and it started up really good, but that wasn't the end of its performance. This engine decided, let's have some more fun. I've been given a second chance at life. Let's have some more fun. So it ran for a week, I'll say. Not even a week, it ran for like a day. And then it decided to piss oil out everywhere again. The crank seals, the dipstick, the breather, except for even worse than it did before. This one, you could put a bucket underneath of it, a 5-gallon bucket underneath of it, and start that engine up, and you'd have all of the engine drained, all the oil drained out of that engine within 3 minutes, and the bucket's full of oil you can take and put somewhere else. Now this was fresh oil too, keep that in mind. So that engine ended up coming out, and I might still have that one around here somewhere, but I'm not sure. And that engine got replaced with a Kohler K241. So you would think that after the last two Tecumseh engines I would have learned my lesson and never bought another one again, right? Well, you would be wrong. The next tractor that came to me with a Tecumseh engine was a 1967, I think it was that one. The 1967 John Deere round fender, the 112, the round fender I had been looking for, the round fender that I thought my other tractor that I had acquired was, but turned out it wasn't a round fender. This thing came to me with a Tecumseh HM100. It's a 10 horse Tecumseh. It's the exact same thing, exact same block basically as the HH100, all except for it's the newer generation. Something was different about the HH100 compared to the HM100. What it was, I don't remember. I think it was a different block, but it was the same piston size, same valves, everything, just a different block. This thing came to me, and oh boy, it was a fun one. As it would run, you would watch the crank, you would watch the pulley that goes back to the transmission as it's flopping back and forth like that. Well, you would grab onto the crank and you would pull it towards you and push it away from you. This thing had to have like 30 or 40 thousandths, maybe even 50 thousandths worth of play in it. It was pretty well wore out. So this thing, it was originally a generator engine is what I'm gathering up. It was a generator engine that somebody cut the tapered shaft off of, because as you know, generator engines have a tapered shaft. They cut the shaft off of it and they drilled a keyway into it for a key, and they put the pulley on there and some way somehow made it to work, which it worked, but it wasn't great, and I got rid of that engine as soon as I possibly could. So that one, something happened. I think what the hell happened? That one developed a knock, and I checked the oil in it was good. So I took a zip tie and I tied the governor wide open and just pushed it out onto the pad and let that engine blow up. I don't have that one around here anymore. That one's gone. But yeah. So this next engine that came to me came with the round fender actually. This one I believe was the original engine to my round fender, and got it running, and I put it in that tractor. That one had a busted head bolt. Something happened. One of the head bolts, I'm guessing, got over torqued and broke. So the head was off of it when I got it, and I noticed that it had a bolt sticking up out of it. I didn't have to drill it out, luckily. I just threw a set of vice grips on what was left, and I turned it, and I got the bolt to come out. So after I did that, I got new head bolts for it, put it all back together, and we got that engine running. I don't remember if this was a YouTube project or not. I don't think it was. I get to a certain point where if I have to make so many videos on something because I'm changing a motor out of it, I'm just not going to record it. Like this thing, for an example, it's got another motor in it now. The last engine you guys saw in it was a Briggs. It's got a Magnum 18 in it now, which I'm still in the process of fitting. So, this one, I got it running, and within the first hour of, not even the first hour, within the first 15 minutes of getting that engine mounted, I went to start it, and I got it to start, and it ran pretty good. Drove it around, and when I got over to that corner of the shop, the head bolt busted. One of the head bolts busted and shot out, and there was fire coming up out of the hole in the head, and as I'm going to stop the tractor, the engine shuts off and squeaks like it's got a blown head gasket. So I looked, and the head bolt was missing. So, nice. I pulled the head off of it, and the head bolt had broke, and it was too far in to retrieve it. I tried drilling it out, but the drill went crooked, and that was the end of it. So yeah, that motor kind of died. The next one I acquired, next two that I acquired were in 112s. All of them are 112s, it seems like, except for one. This one was, it was a 1970. There was a 1969 and a 1970 John Deere 112. The one I bought, it was, both of them were hydraulic lift 112s. One of them was something that somebody had used as a parts tractor before that I wanted to see if I could save and bring it back to life. The other one I bought for parts for this tractor. That one ended up I ended up keeping that one, and I got what I wanted off of it, and I sold the tractor. I never tried getting that one running because, well, obviously Tecumseh engines are junk. So I never tried getting that one running because I didn't want to have any more problems with it than the last two that I had, or four that I had, that gave me nothing but issues. So that one got sold, nothing wrong with it, nothing to report on that one. This other one though, oh boy. So this one came to me on a 1969 John Deere 112 hydraulic lift. This one had a Tecumseh HH100, same as the rest. This one, the transmission was pulled out of it. Somebody was using it as a parts tractor. It didn't have a hydraulic pump on it. On this 69 112, the transmission was gone, the fender pan was gone, the hydraulic pump was gone, the hood was gone, the hood uprights I think were gone, the grill was gone. There was a few other things that were missing on this tractor, and I bought the 1970 for these parts. I bought it for the grill, the hood, although I put a different hood on that tractor. No, I put a different hood on this tractor, not that one. Fender pan, I had a different one that I put on this tractor. There was a couple other things that I stole off of that 70 before I sold it. I don't remember what it was. And I bought this 69 to get it running decent. And I got it running, I got it back together to the point where I could drive it, but there was some issue with that engine. You could never get that thing to run right. I put a Kohler carb on it because the carbs that Tecumseh used were all junk. They didn't know how to make a carb apparently that worked. And I put a Kohler K181 carb, which for those who didn't know, you can actually fit a Kohler K181 carb off of the 8-horse Kohler or 7-horse Kohlers too. They use the same carb onto the Tecumseh engines and make it work. So I swapped the Kohler carb on there and I got this one to work, and it worked for a while. The coil that was in it, there's a solid state coil that goes on these Tecumsehs. Tecumseh did something weird. And they had a solid state coil. It's kind of like the coil that they use on modern day engines on top, over top of the flywheel. Except for that one runs off of a magnet. This one has a point in the flywheel that I don't think it's a magnet, but it gaps. Right here would be the coil, right here would be the flywheel. It gaps as it goes over under the flywheel, or the flywheel piece goes under it. It gaps it and sends a spark up through the coil. I don't know what it's called, and it's not magnetic, so it's not like the modern day coils. And there was really no gap to be set on those. I'm not sure what that system was. It was just a solid state. This engine, I put the new carb on it and I got it to run decent, and after I got it to run decent, the coil that was on it decided to die. So that kind of led me down a road of regret. I took the coil off of the engine that was in my 68-112 that blew the cam gear out of itself, and I threw it on there, got the engine to run again, and then that tractor, it had an issue. The transmission that I put in it, that's what it was, came out of a 110 that someone used as a pulling tractor that I bought for a parts tractor. And that 110, first and second gear were basically gone. Third gear was there, but it was kind of iffy. You're lucky to get it in there and get it to work without jumping gears. Fourth gear, it was basically just So third gear was really the only gear you could use. So that tractor got jumped between gears all the time because I didn't care. So the transmission got pulled out of it, the engine got pulled out of it, that tractor got stripped all the way down to the frame pretty much. I have that, I think I still have that tractor actually, the frame of what's left of it. The parts are all upstairs, but I think I still have the frame. So that tractor, the engine came out of it and it got put into a 1966 Sears Suburban 10, and once it got put in that Sears, oh boy, this is where things get worse. This thing ended up just not wanting to run at all. It had spark, it had fuel, it had compression. You spray a can of ether at it, you dump gas in the cylinder, you could not get this thing to start for whatever reason. I could not figure it out. But I pulled the head off of it, checked everything. Both valves moved, the cylinder looked good. You put the thing back together, spin it over, it's got good compression. You put the head back on it with a new head gasket, new spark plug, new carb. Unplug, you put a new muffler, or take the muffler off actually, just to make sure that's not the problem, and it would not run worth a damn. You couldn't get the thing to run at all actually. So that motor got pulled out and swapped for a Kohler K181, and that K181 is still in that tractor and it still runs pretty decent. So then we get to the most recent tractor, two tractors. one of them was a 1966, 66 or 65, and the other one was a 1967 Series Custom 6. This one has been the second biggest pain in the ass that I have ever had to deal with. This thing was known as Murphy. And so if you ever hear me refer to a tractor as Murphy, that is why. Murphy's Law. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong. Murphy's Law applies perfectly to this tractor. This thing started off life, it's a 1967 Sears Custom 6. There was another tractor that came with this tractor that I had bought. It was a 1968 Sears Custom 6 as well, although somebody had swapped the engine out. Originally it had I think it was an HH60 that both of these tractors would have originally had. This one somebody swapped a HM engine into. I'm thinking the engine that was swapped into that custom was a Tecumseh HM100. I don't think it was a HM60 or 6 horse because it had the exact same block to it as the H8 or HM100 did. But that one I never really messed with. I didn't get that one running. I actually just went ahead and sold that one once I took the stuff I wanted. I wanted the wheel weights and a few other things off of it. I actually took the wheel weights off of it, painted them John Deere yellow, and those are the wheel weights that are on my 71-140, the one that I use for snow plowing and that carries around the wagon at the tractor shows. So, Murphy. We get going on Murphy. Murphy is a, well, how do I describe this one? How do I keep it nice? Murphy is one of those, well, let's just start off with this. Murphy's Law. Anything that can go wrong, absolutely damn right will go wrong. This tractor had it started life off, I don't know what year, or I don't know when the tractor was parked. I do know that at some point in time it sat for 20 something years. It was a snowplow tractor. I think it and that other one worked for a fleet out as a company somewhere. I don't know what company they worked for, but I'm pretty certain that they were fleet tractors for a company. They used them for snow plowing. One of them I think came with a deck. I have a deck for one of them upstairs. Which one it was, I don't know. I think it was for Murphy. So, this tractor had a Tecumseh carburetor on it when I had first got it. That carb, I had got it to run kind of, but I could not get it to idle and I could not get it to run full throttle. I had that carb apart 3 or 4 times trying to figure out why it wouldn't work. I pulled the main jet out of it, and even after pulling the main jet out of it and putting the main jet back in it, it still gave me trouble. So I ended up taking that carb and I swapped it out for a Kohler K181 carb. And I got it to run like that and it ran really good, but the only problem with this engine was the carburetor on the HH60 was attached to a mounting plate. It had 2 bolts that came out of it. It was a plate that bolted onto the engine. 2 bolts came out of it. The bolts weren't welded to the plate. They weren't attached to the plate in any way, shape, or form. They were just Allen head, no, they were Phillips head screws that went in there, and that's what held the carburetor to your plate. And then there was 2 screws that went from the plate into the block to the engine where the carb bolted on. I think they were around there somewhere. They weren't quite right there. So, needless to say, this thing had a very special arrangement. So you couldn't take that plate off of there to mount the new carb. And you could get that new carb on there, but you couldn't take that plate back off of the engine to make it work. Or no. You could mount that carburetor to that plate and you could make it work, but the only problem is when you went to put that plate back onto the engine, you couldn't do it because there was no room to get a screwdriver in there to put the screws in that held this plate onto the block of the motor. So what I ended up doing is I took a tube of JB Weld and I pulled that plate off and I stuck pulled the bolts out of the plate, and I put JB Weld on the ones that hold the carburetor to the plate. So that way, and I took those, put JB Weld on them, put bolts or nuts on the other side of them and tightened them down as tight as I could and made sure they were dead straight. That way, when I went to put the carb back on it, it would be straight in line and it wouldn't give me any problems. So I put the JB Weld on there and I managed to get that carb to work on there. That carb is actually still on the engine, just not that carb, but the Kohler K181, or that plate that I did that to, is actually still on that engine, and it still is running to this day, believe it or not. So that engine, I got it to run like that, and this one must have felt like, you know, the first two Tecumsehs gave you a lot of trouble, and I don't want to be on that list of engines you absolutely hate. So this one decided that idle jets do not need to exist, and it expertly cataloged or deleted its idle jet. I took it to the 5 Point steam shell out there in 5 Point, Ohio, and drove it around. A friend of mine was actually going to buy it off of me, and I took it over there for him to try it out and see if he liked it or not. And he liked it, so cool. We drove it around and we used it, and for whatever reason the tractor was starting to run really bad. And I had noticed it was getting worse and worse and worse, and I was trying to figure out what the deal was with it. So I got it home and I looked at it, and I noticed while I was looking at it, there is no idle jet anymore. The jet is gone, or the head of the jet was gone. So I looked in there a little bit closer. The stem of the jet was still there, and the head of the bolt, or the head of the jet, had broken off, melted off. I'm guessing because it was right there by the exhaust, it had melted off right there by the muffler. And as the engine was running and the carb was vibrating, the jet had tightened itself in. So I look at that and thinking, well, that fucking sucks. So that explained why it didn't run worth a damn at the end of the day. So I rolled my eyes and I cussed, and I pulled that carb back off of there and I put a new carb on. Actually, I had pulled the carb off of my 71 110 and I threw it on there, thinking that if I throw this one on there, this thing should run. That 110 needed some work anyway, so I just went ahead and pulled the carb off of it and just kind of left it sit there to do whatever it needed. It really didn't need a whole lot done. It just needed it either had a flat tire or it was burning oil. That's what it was. So I let it sit there and pulled the carb off of it because it really didn't need it for the time being, and I threw it onto Murphy. I got that tractor to run, and it ran fairly decent. And then the other issue that I noticed with this tractor was the way that they were set up was either you had a clutch or you had a brake. You could not have both. If you got the brakes to work decent, you had no clutch. If you got the clutch to work decent, you had no brakes. Even after replacing the belt, no, I didn't replace the belt on that one. I actually left the belt alone. I was going to replace it, but never got around to it. But after messing with it, I could never get the carb to work, or the clutch to work on it, and the brakes at the same time. So, yeah, that one was kind of a nightmare. That one was a problem, for sure. So, buying advice, this is my take on things, and again, everybody has different opinions than I have, but this is my opinion, completely my opinion. If you are looking for a garden tractor, whether it be a John Deere, Sears, Cub, it doesn't matter the brand, I would avoid at all costs. If you find one that has a Tecumseh engine, I would stay as far away from it as possible, especially if you are just getting into the garden tractors, because having a Tecumseh will ruin your interest in the garden tractors. Well, let me rephrase it. If you end up buying a Tecumseh, hope and pray that it runs, and if it runs, it doesn't need anything done. However, keep your eyes open for a different tractor because, well, you're going to want to get rid of that one because it's going to be having problems quick. So just use the Tecumseh up until you find something else and then get rid of it. That's basically my motto, and that's my way of doing things here in my shop. I don't have any Tecumsehs around here anymore except for a generator, which I actually do not use anymore. I just got a new one, so there you go. Alright guys, I want to take a second and thank you for watching the video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you guys enjoyed the Storytime Sunday. This was a kind of a different thing to do, and I hope you guys liked it. Let me know what you think. This is something that I always get asked. Everybody always asks me, what do I think about Tecumseh engines, why I hate Tecumseh engines, or why do I stay away from Tecumseh engines and tell people to avoid them. And well, now you have a reason why. So there you go. So, it's only right of me, if you stuck around all the way to this point of the video, to ask you if you like what you see today. You must like it if you stuck around to this point. Please consider going down below, hitting that like button on the video. Leave me a comment, positive, negative. Let me know what you think. What are your experiences with Tecumseh engines? What do you think of them? Have you had any problems with them in the past? Have you seen any of the problems that I've had with them in your own engines? Or if I'm missing something, who knows? So, like I said, and while you're at it down there hitting the like button and leaving me a comment, go on ahead and hit that subscribe button. It doesn't cost you a thing. It tells YouTube that you guys like these videos and you want to see more. It also tells myself that you guys like the videos and want to see more. And yeah, so with that being said, I want to thank you for watching, and I will catch all of you hopefully in the next video. Take care guys. Bye.